not blame us. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you. So now we move on, and I'll now request Mehak Sachdeva, who is member of Global Languages Center, to kindly introduce the chief guest, Professor Dr. R.K. Anayat.
Thank you, Professor Batra. Thank you, Professor Batra. Yes. Good evening, everybody. With great pleasure, I request you all to please join me in welcoming our honorable chief guest for this evening, Colonel Commandant Professor Dr. R.K. Anayat. Dr. Anayat is into his second term as the Vice Chancellor of Deenbandhu Choturam University of Science and Technology, Sonipat. He is globally recognized for his contribution in the field of print technology. A proponent of new industrial convergence theory and widely travel around the globe for education, research, seminars, conferences, and tie-ups, Professor Anayat is a highly reputed researcher and academician. His contribution to the global graphic arts industry has been very well recognized. He is a visiting scholar to Technic University, Chemnitz, and an international professor at Zagreb University. Based on his contributions to the global graphic arts industry, the Printing Industries of America conferred its most coveted Global Academic Excellence Award in Chicago in the year 2011. In 2013, the All India Federation of Master Printers conferred him with the Samman Award at its Diamond Jubilee celebrations. The Indian Society of Analytical Scientists, ISAS, honored him with the Lifetime Achievement Award in the year 2015. The Society of Dyers and Colorists, UK, awarded him with the Silver Medal for his outstanding contribution to the global graphic arts industry and education in 2015 at York, UK. He was honored with the Print Excellence Award by AIFMP in the year 2017 at Amritsar. Recently, the Government of India granted him honorary colonel rank and appointed him as the Colonel Commandant of NCC, PHHP, and Sea Directorate. He is very closely associated with BIS and TC 130 to develop standards for the print industry and with the AICTE, NAC, and UGC in senior management assignments. He is also a member of the Executive Council, Academic Council, Port and Planning Board to various universities. Professor Anayat is a member of many Haryana government apex bodies like the Board of School Education, Corn Corporation, Blue Ribbon Committee for Education Upliftment, HSTE, Higher Education Council, and various others. Once again, a very warm welcome, Professor Anayat. It's an honor to have you with us this evening.
Thank you, Neha Tyagi.
This is Mehak Sachdeva, sir.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
This was Mehak, sir.
Okay. It's my mistake. So thank you, Professor Batra, once again to be with you all. As Professor Shahini said, it's a real tough time for any speaker to be the last, and that too, a completely unqualified, disqualified person like me. I'm a hardcore engineer, I'm a machine builder. Throughout my life, I did mechanical engineering in my undergraduate studies, postgraduate studies, PhD focusing more into printing. So I always used to tell, I am more of the back end of you people because you write and publish and I do the printing behind. But I also did some small preparation of notes yesterday evening because such an important program, what Professor Batra is organizing. It is every year it happens, I know. Once I had an opportunity a few years ago, but that day I was allowed to speak on technology, which was much easy for me to project how it is going to change. Only what is making me qualified a little bit to be with you today is the passion for languages. I was born in extreme south of India, in Kerala. So naturally, I learned my mother tongue, Malayalam, then the neighboring languages like Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, and I studied in Pune, so a little bit Marathi, and then moved here. So now a little bit Haryanvi, I can say. Hindi. This is the way I was exposed, and I worked with a German company for 9 years, so I can little bit understand German too. This is what made me little bit qualified to be with you. No other reason. Otherwise, I am completely disqualified. To begin with, I want to remember the poem written by William Butler Yeats, that turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. I believe these lines manifest the postmodernity and its nature. And they also indicate the world we are part of. Out of all those early days philosophers who talked about postmodernism, probably one among the first who really defined postmodernism was Arnold Toynbee, the well-known historian. In 1939, in his book, A Study of History, he said that this postmodernism can be located between the two world wars. I mean, something like 1918 and 39. So the term postmodernism refers to number one, the historical period, and the state of the mind, the social and cultural tendencies a second. So the spirit of postmodernism indicates that life is in a state of flux and virtual reality perpetually. And that's why we are meeting in this medium also today. A year ago, it was so difficult for all of us to even imagine meeting in a platform like this. When you look at the Marxist perspective of the early of the 20th century, postmodernism is that it promotes consumerism and capitalism, and it takes consumers away from traditional practices and compels to adopt a culture of supermarket. And this promotes consumerist capitalist culture through borderless mass media and transportation with no barriers of space. In fact, postmodernism makes us to live in the present with no sense of history. Scientific reason has eroded the authority of tradition and certainty of beliefs. Modern technology has made everything transparent, so near, relative, and virtual. In fact, because of the cyber age, we are living in a state of virtual reality. And I can say the new normal is virtual is real. So postmodern mind likes video games, TV, internet fiction. That's almost replaced the traditional photo fiction. The new media promotes fragmented images, short episodes. The guiding principle of postmodern generation is brief but intense life, and not forever and ever. The world global village is more like a marketplace with no fixed rules or privileges for anyone. One listens to reggae, watches a Western movie, eats at McDonald's food for lunch and a local cuisine for dinner, and wears a Persian perfume in Tokyo and a retro clothes in Hong Kong. So the postmodern terms, everything is authoritative, rigid, or serious is subverted, questioned, and mocked. So postmodernism is a way of life, a way of feeling, and a state of mind. Postmodern promotes local over universal, differences over similarity, resistance over conformity, flux over stability, hybridity over purity. So in a PM literature, there are no epics, no noble heroes, and no grand narratives that elevate our thoughts and passions. External beliefs, including religion, are not trusted. Self-help and own resources are trusted. That is why one finds a lot of books on railway stations, airports, or boat jetties or shipyards, books on how to win and empower oneself. Postmodernists live on railway stations, airports, and shipyards, boat jetties, because they are on the move. And they are ceaseless, dissatisfied in movement, based on demand and supply theory, reflects a yuppie outlook. Money, constant displacement, virtual reality, and somehow win attitude are the new markers of the PM society. Social engineering defines PM. There is no brand loyalty today in any aspect of contemporary life. And postmodernism is the age of displacement, whereas modernism is the age of unity, stability, and security. Life is more structured and with the human touch in modernism. But well, to understand the postmodernism in a better manner, if you look at the COVID-19, which is the apt context, I believe, where scientists on one side and postmodernists like, it's just an example like Trump on the other side, Donald Trump on the other side. So Trump can be considered as an apt example for postmodernism. Scientists are trying to find a uniform text to explain COVID-19, but postmodernists are substituting real with a hyper real. So why Trump is postmodernist? Because he has not been faithful to one position rather than kept moving freely between one position to the other position, one stand to the other stand. As postmodernism says, there is no originality, rather authenticity. So Trump and his followers believe themselves to be authentic. Trump's shifting stand on China is well known. Trump has been prophetic on COVID-19, but without any evidence. Even on wonder drug, hydroxychloroquine, we know that we exported from India. Trump shifted his stand after some time and a game changer to I am not a doctor. We have seen that. It is an example of hyper reality. So even on disinfectants injected into blood being cure for COVID-19, Trump shifted his stand. So true to PM, Trump believes in nothing for more than a short duration and did not show a long-term commitment to a single point of view. However, all these views of Trump were authentic because they came out of his heart. And many of us are Trump in postmodern times and believe and exhibit post-truth rather than the real truth. This is the time me as an engineer, I want to bring to you an interesting book, which probably many of you must have already read, written by a historian professor, Professor Yuval Noah Harari, who has written 3 books. Now, his first book he is trying to produce as a graphic novel now, it's going to come now. He wrote Sapiens in 2014 and 15 Homo Deus, and in 2018, he came up with the 21 lessons for the 21st century, in which he says, humans think in stories rather than in facts, numbers, or equations, which is why communist, fascist, and liberal stories of the 20th century were so powerful. The simpler the story, the better. A lesson not only for those who declare a political war, but also for those who are in the business and entrepreneurship game. It is imperative that you make your stories as simple as possible. While the 20th century was all about these 3 political systems, the 21st century introduces new stories and classes, that of humans, superhumans, and artificial intelligence. As artificial intelligence gets more sophisticated, it will create a class of humans and superhumans who are augmented by technology. So the new societal system, what we call it as Society 5.0, which is just after the Industry 4.0, have a lot to do with our free will. All these years, we were thinking that no one can touch my will, but today that is not the case. Maybe a Facebook or a Twitter or a similar social media platform knows much, much more than what I know about myself. Yuval Noah Harari is explaining about himself as an experience. Once he was just watching an ad for a soft drink in his laptop. He suddenly noticed the Coke company displayed an ad where a gay couple displayed the entire thing. But for Pepsi, it was the traditional, beautiful, a girl and a boy. And he being a gay, after a couple of days when he visited a supermarket, he was not in need of buying a soft drink, but suddenly he noticed a set of Coke bottles displayed on the top of the rack, and he went and picked it and put it in his basket. Reason being, his will was already taken over and controlled by somebody else. So this is the kind of world where we are going to live. So the behavioral economists and evolutionary psychologists have demonstrated that most human decisions are based on emotional reactions and heuristics, shortcuts, rather than rational analysis, and that emotions and heuristics were perhaps suitable for dealing with the life in the Stone Age, but they are woefully inadequate in the Silicon Age, which will not work out today. And he gave a very beautiful definition, because happiness is nothing but reality minus expectations. So the problem with the universal basic income or universal basic system, what you services, what you produce, so UBI or UBS, is that human beings are not just built for satisfaction, because human happiness depends less on objective conditions and more on our own expectations. So our expectations adapt to changing conditions, including to the condition of other people, keeping up with the Johnsons. When things improve, expectations balloon, and consequently even dramatic improvements in conditions might leave us as dissatisfied as before. So once big data algorithms and AI, which will help us to arrive at the right data and decision theories, what will happen when what we need to study, where to work, and who to marry, and the kind of democratic elections and free markets will make little sense to us in the coming time. So the normal questioning in our life, which life will help us to understand, we were answered through emotions on earlier days, will be replaced with a maybe on an AI-based system, otherwise which will not make any sense in our life. So to understand the biomechanical, biochemical mechanisms that underpin human emotions, desires, and choices through better computers, and can precisely analyze human behavior. It is possible in the coming time. All these we were thinking that emotional oriented things cannot be predicted or measured, but in the coming time it is possible to measure. It is anything which can be measured, it can be controlled. And you can predict human decisions and replacing human professions, such as maybe bankers, teachers, lawyers, and even doctors. An AI doctor can even take you out of your field. It is going to happen. So what I feel is he's also talking about 21 lessons he spoke. So I can't tell everything, but two more things I want to tell you. One is about democracy. So when my decision itself is controlled by somebody else, there is no meaning for democracy, because a mere number has no meaning in the coming time. So the denominator has no meaning. So democracy is to be redefined. Majority may be wrong in all cases, because all my decisions are controlled by somebody else. So this is another point wherein maybe the postmodern day will be in this way. Then the whole world is based on AI, which we know that. And an AI-based automobile, you just imagine, maybe by 2035 or 40, you are not allowed to enter a city like Delhi or New York or in Bombay by your own car, because you cannot drive it. You are not allowed. An AI-based system will drive your car. In such a situation, what he predicts is within a fraction of a second. For example, just imagine a set of students jumped over your car in front of you And within a fraction of a second, your AI car has to take, automobile has to take a decision whether to hit on these kids or turn to left or right or tumble to the valley or hit on the wall on left and kill yourself. You are the owner of the car, but that has no meaning now, because the AI system, which is programmed with a value system, has to take a decision, and my own car may kill me in the coming time. So this is the kind of world where we are going to live. So having defined and explained, I think postmodernism, however, I believe that the identity of a person cannot be strictly modern, postmodern, or traditional. In a multicultural country like India, Bharat, these identities overlap and are not mutually exclusive in nature. So postmodernism for Western world may be a new normal, but for an Indian, postmodernity in many aspects has been the convention. So we believe in wholeness, WHOLENES, wholeness, without rejecting individuality. So what is coming to my mind is an old Vedic sloka, which says, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. It means you add whole into whole, the whole remains as whole. If you deduct or minus whole out of whole, whole remains as whole. So what we have to do now is let us juxtapose the tradition, modernity and post-modernity, since the meaning of life is really holistic in nature, where time and space defines the nature of meaning. This is what Einstein also said. Time and space are the quantum in which alone the plurality in this universe can exist and function. So with that note, let me conclude and thank you for inviting me here with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very wonderful take on the concept of postmodernism. We had perspective from Sani, sir, which was psychological perspective, and you, in addition to technological, also gave us a bird's eye view of the entire spectrum of postmodernism as it is likely to impact mankind in near future. And some of the observations were very, very critical and also alarming when you say that a car driven by AI may kill the owner itself. And second thing is, even though we claim postmodernism is basically a democratizing kind of concept, at the same time, you have proven that when AI enters, then probably majority also will not matter. So this is, of course, a virtual world in which we live now, and more probably we are advancing towards very uncertain times. But as you have pointed out, in case we bank upon traditional knowledge and take a cue from it, probably therein lies salvation of mankind, if only it were to take care of it. Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful oratory skills as also scholarly views. And let me now move on